place I've ever spoken. So this is the first time I've had a coffee like right before I've gotten on stage, so I don't know how that's going to pan out. I'm already like starting to shake. So thank you all for coming, and thank you for Creative Mornings for having me here. It's so good to be part of such a great initiative across the entire world for creative-minded individuals. So thank you. I'm here to talk about Dear Data and my work. And to begin, I'll just introduce myself. I am a designer who's made a career out of working with data in ways that are out of the ordinary, that are unconventional, and because this is the theme for the week, you'll hear this word a lot, ways that are weird. So in my day job, I create data-driven designs for both art commissions and commercial work, ranging from information design to creating physical objects in public installations from data. So as part of my practice, I've created projects where people can dance through data, like this project where I was the first data artist in residence at Facebook, and I converted a month of a couple's interactions on Facebook into dance steps, bringing their digital dance across Facebook timelines into a physical space. I can feel the caffeine shake. I'm already in the first minute. I've also created projects where people can hop and jump through data, such as my open data playground for the South Bank Centre in London, where hopscotch games were created from open data sets in order to communicate how open data sets are online for anyone to interpret and play with however they choose, even if some of the interpretations are more unconventional than others. And I've also created physical data projects, such as this collaboration with Miriam Quick, where we explored experiential ways of communicating open air quality data from Sheffield in 2014 to capture the interest of a citizen audience potentially uninterested in air quality data. So one part of the project presented weeks of particulate matter data as something you could touch and wear, and the other part communicated daily pollution levels in Sheffield through glasses that would make your vision more or less polluted depending on the data. So with all those projects, you can see as a designer, I'm most interested in exploring ways of presenting data that, besides being legible, are more memorable to a layperson audience who might just be learning about data for the first time. And this interest in physical, manual, and analog data culminated in a recent collaboration with Georgia Lupi, the creative director of the information design agency Accurat, which is based in New York and Milan, and their work is shown on screen now. So Georgia and I had only met twice in person when in 2014 we decided to embark on an incredibly laborious side project that took out practically all of our evenings and weekends for an entire year. And we wanted to collaborate because we discovered we have lots of personal and work similarities. So first, we're both expats. Georgia is an Italian living in New York, and you can probably hear it. I'm an American living in London. And we're also both the same age, though I'm not going to tell you the age. Like, someone interviewed us recently, and they're like, "Can we have your ages?" And we had to say them out loud. Well, 35, and it was just like, And another thing is, we're both also only children, though hopefully not too me. And finally, and this is the most important similarity, we don't really code, but both prefer to work with data in a very handcrafted and analog way. And this way of working is in contrast to the often standard use of computing and algorithms as part of the data visualization process, where people might create complex visualizations like what you see on screen. So I suppose from the beginning, Georgia and I always felt a little weird as the non-coding analog designers within our chosen community. So when we realized there was someone else who was as weird as us, we were really happy that there were now two of us. And so we decided to challenge ourselves, since I swear, I think a fly just came into my mouth right now. That is like, why? Okay. This is all going on the record as well. What? Why? Okay, I'm back to normal. All right, so we decided to challenge ourselves. Since data visualization was the language that we spoke for work, we would use this language to get to know each other better, ideally in this analog, hand-drawn way. And so over a summer of emails back and forth, we decided to use our biggest constraint, that we live on different continents, as our biggest asset. And so we came up with a project that we called Dear Data, a year of sending hand-drawn data postcards back and forth across the Atlantic. So this started the 1st of September 2014 and lasted a year, and every week we collected our personal data around a shared topic to investigate and reveal aspects of ourselves and our days to then share with the other person. Then at the end of the week, we'd spend time analyzing our data, and then we would painstakingly draw our visualizations and our annotations on a postcard, and once we were finished, we would drop the postcards in our mailbox or our post box and wait with our fingers crossed, and if all went well, the postcard would arrive at the other person's address with all the scuff marks of their journey over the ocean. So a type of slow data transmission where the Postal Service became our third collaborator. All of our postcards follow the same structure. So the fronts of the postcards contain no text or explanation. These would show a hopefully beautiful drawing that could work as a standalone illustration if the viewer didn't know that there was data behind it. And the back of the postcard obviously has the address and the stamp and the project title and the week, but also a legend explaining how to read our drawings. So through this format, every week was an exploration of small data made very human and personal due to its inherent imperfections, where even the choices in data collection functioned as a unique representation of each person. And so, yeah, when everyone is talking about big data and everyone is talking about virtual reality, we instead decide to do something that's the complete opposite. And yes, this doesn't sound very revolutionary, but by removing technology from the equation, we were forced to extend ourselves as designers, where the constraints of a weekly deadline, analog materials, and the limited size of a postcard actually forced us to be more creative, challenging us each to come up with 52 different visual languages, incredibly customized to the 52 unique data sets we each gathered, where the whole project became a fragmented self-portrait sent to the other person. So that's the project, but just to show briefly how it unfolded and developed over the year, I'll just show some of the postcards in more detail. So we started the year gathering data on how often we checked the clock for the time that week. And so this first week, we tried to manually gather all of our data by hand in keeping with our analog theme, but we soon realized that was completely crazy. So we soon allowed each other to take data notes on our phones to save our sanity. And then for the second week, we tracked our walks and our transportation through our cities. And so for this week, we turned on the Move's movement tracking app to gather this data. And this is actually the first and last time where we use an external app to automatically track us, as we agreed we felt we weren't really in control, and it felt impersonal to be tracked by an app as opposed to personally tracking our own data. So as the weeks progressed, we mainly explored themes requiring manual data collection, focusing on what computers can't gather, or at least they can't gather yet, and trying to move beyond what was possible, what was expected, and working with weird, idiosyncratic data, such as our drinking for a week, and you can see we drink a lot, though this is New Year's. And then we've got our swearing for the week, so that's always George's postcard, and this is mine, and you can see that I swear a lot. And though, okay, I didn't expect my swearing to be the thing that I was immortalized in a national newspaper for. So this is like last Sunday's Observer, but I will take, what I can get. We also experimented with trying to capture the most fleeting of emotions, like tracking a week of our laughter, which was a real challenge and also a great example of how gathering such joyous data lifts up one's mood. And then we also explored gathering data that forced us to confront the less than perfect sides of ourselves, like a week of envy or a week of negative thoughts. And then we also extended the project beyond only real-time data gathering, moving to weeks where we surveyed parts of our lives for the other, like surveying our collections of books or our music collections, our wardrobes, and so on. And since gathering data on your behavior inherently changes your behavior, We also tried what we called performative data tracking, where we tried to gather particular data sets in the hope that the data gathering would make us change our behavior in a positive way, like trying something new, which was on screen, or smiling at strangers, or being nicer to the people around us. And then finally, after 52 weeks, it seemed fitting to end the project with a week of goodbyes. And as a collected whole, these are all of Georgia's 52 postcards, and then this is my year of postcards here. If you want to know more, find us on the internet at our website or Twitter, but really, more importantly, you should buy our book, which will be released next week by Penguin in the UK, yay, Penguin in Particular Books, and Princeton Architectural Press in the US. Now, so that's the project, but now for the second half, I'll talk about the professional insights that we learned from a year of Dear Data. Firstly, this year made us believe in the benefits of human-scale data. So in Dear Data, we found that this small, very human scale that we've been working to has opened the idea of data to a wider audience, and it's made it more approachable. Because this project looks at domestic and often mundane data that most people can relate to, we've been able to show that data is something that is simply, in every aspect of our lives, and it isn't scary and it isn't intimidating. In short, we think that small human-scale data is a friendly stepping stone to more in-depth, bigger picture conversations about data's place in our culture and society, data privacy, and so on. So small is a really good place to begin. And by gathering, analyzing, and drawing our small data in this very manual way, we're highlighting that when learning basic principles of working with and visualizing data, you don't need fancy programs, you don't need incredible data analysis skills to begin. All you really do need is a pencil. And the positive feedback we've received about the project is testament to the fact that this manual, domestic way of introducing people to data resonates with them. As we've also received emails from people who are starting Dear Data correspondence projects of their own. One man is in the audience who's done his own project, or are using it as part of their teaching materials for middle schools, high schools, and universities to help students learn to collect and present data. So the most wonderful result from what started as a personal side project. And next, we've seen people begin to describe Dear Data in new ways. So using words where data begins to feel human and where data is being described as something warm instead of something cold, showing how data can inspire powerful emotions. And I think this can be shown in our week of physical contact. And so this is a close-up of the postcard I drew this week, where each dot represents deliberate physical contact, and it's all grouped according to person. Now, of course, this is my husband. He's the person who I obviously had the most physical contact with. I mean, that is what you would hope, at least. Although this is a special postcard because this week also records the last time my parents were in London, which was about 2 years ago now. And so I have seen my parents since then, but for the longest time this postcard would make me feel sad and miss my family, as it was a visual representation of the last time that I had hugged them. And so I was often struck by how such powerful emotions could be evoked in me by a, quote, cold data set. And so I think these feelings reinforce what we really believe, that the basic act of even collecting data on a topic or any topic means it matters and means that it's important to the author. And so we're really interested in this idea that gathering data on different parts of your life is a way of figuring out, learning more about your life and figuring out what is important in it. And also, as we were posting our drawings online every week, we noticed that after the first few weeks of being worried about being criticized over every wonky line or every messily drawn data point, this feeling began to fade away because by drawing, we were indicating that this was an experimental space removed from our chosen field. And so Dear Data became a data design sandbox where we could play and explore freely and confidently and do weird things with weird outcomes. So while we believe critical discourse in a field is essential, we think there is a value in letting people have a space to learn and to make mistakes, and believe me, I've made so many mistakes this year, and it's like evidence is all of these little apologies in red that I would write to Georgia for every mistake in my legend, and that's not even including like the mistakes in my data visualizations and the drawings itself. We see messiness and imperfection as a sign of exploration. We're working on the edges of what is possible in our field, trying to capture data that is often uncapturable. And for us, that can only be seen as a positive result. And also, through Dear Data, we've realized the importance of looking at a data set from different angles. So data is more than just the insights locked within itself and can become and signify many things, including a souvenir of a moment in time, or it can be a self-portrait, like in these postcards where we visualize our pasts, or it can even become a love letter, like one week where we gathered feelings of love for our husband/boyfriend. And this is just the beginning. So data can and will function as and symbolize so many things. And we've reached a second stage of this current data visualization renaissance that we're going through, where the same data set can now be both a scientific and analytical material and a cultural material presented in order to communicate a collector of visualizers' emotions, wants, needs, personality, and so on, and where artists can respond to a data set in the same way that they can respond to an event, an era, or something in the culture around them. And I think it's really exciting that a data set can have this duality, eliciting completely different responses in these two different spaces, and both of these responses are valid and valuable. And also, finally, during the year, we noticed that whenever we received each other's postcards, Georgia and I would text and ask specific questions that started from our data. And so it's always been a reminder to us that our personal data was always a starting point, the beginning of a deeper conversation about our lives, instead of just like, you know, the end point, instead of that this is us. But it was always the beginning of a conversation. Now, as we ended the year, and we were lucky enough to get a book deal, and we began to create our book together, we ended up extending this conversation, where besides getting to know each other through our data, we were getting to know each other through our our design sensibility, as we had to design this book together. And, you know, Dear Data has always inherently been a collaborative but parallel project, because we needed to each make a postcard on our own and then send it to the other, and the postcards would pass in like ships in the night over the Atlantic, like in this illustration by Georgia that she drew for the book. And so the two would never meet. And so this has been our constant format, and still is to some degree. And you can even just see in the postcards that we both have our own, you know, design sensibility and our own way of doing things. So you can imagine that when we had to merge our two designs in a book, that's when we had to really start thrashing out our design issues. And, you know, it's definitely not been easy at all. And, I mean, we definitely got on each other's nerves as we moved through this process. I mean, we still do. Where we would be thinking that the other's ideas were strange, or they were weird, or just really different to what we were used to. And by the way, while Georgia is giving me the evil eye in this grumpy scenario you see on screen, it was often in reverse. So we would go back and forth. And so it's been really difficult to figure out how to find ways of working together and to compromise. So we had to we had to resort to a few things. And this is a very quick selection. So the first being this list of things that bothered us, which, as we both, this is a shared Google Doc that we have, where when we really had to figure things out, you know, this is like totally irrational and illogical in many ways, but we had to put them down there so then the other person could really understand what was going on. So it's like things like, Georgia doesn't like verso pages in books. I like some drop shadows, but not too much. I don't like things angled. I don't like purple and yellow. I don't know why. Georgia doesn't like green and orange, so that really limits what colors we can work with. So this, you know, we had to put it all down there and then move on. The second one was that we found it even difficult to agree on a cover design. So we both thought, okay, well, we're each going to design our own cover. They're related covers, but they're of our own design for our respective markets. So I actually designed the cover for the UK because I live in the UK. And we've had a lot of conflict, like positive conflict, but really, whenever we took a breath and we took a step back, we were reminded that we could have never done this project alone. I mean, firstly, because it would be weird to send a postcard to yourself, that kind of falls apart. But secondly, the two of us together had more power than one. And so for me, as a self-employed designer who works on her own and has a very particular way of doing things, my collaboration with Georgia is a good reminder that what seems weird or different in the first instance isn't, it's not wrong, but after some thought and some reflection is often the right way that I could have never seen on my own. And I've learned so much from collaborating with Georgia on this project. So, if we were just of the same mindset where we agreed on everything, this project would have been weaker for it. But by continual discussion, disagreement, refinement, and bringing our different ways of working together, we've been able to move this collaboration from an initial email to a month of postcards, to a year of postcards, to having it in exhibitions, to having it at the Science Museum now, and now to a book. And all of this was a personal project started from a conversation over a shared beer. So in a way, while our similarities were what started the project, it was our difference, our weirdness to each other that fueled our collaboration and pushed it forward. And so I guess you could say that besides data being the beginning of a conversation for us, it was also the beginning of a collaboration. And so we're both really excited at how this has become a long-term collaboration that has outlasted the year and is looking like it will outlast the book. So yeah, watch this space. And I got my final cheesy, it's a cheesy slide. But it's fine, it works. Yeah, within the weird is the reward. So seeking out what is different in your field and in your collaborators is how you know you're on track and that you're progressing to new spaces. And that's it. Thank you.